Hey guys, Marsingan here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so hopefully very soon we should be getting some kind of teaser or information about part 3 of the worldwide celebration. Last year we did get an update around the usual time that we get producer letter drops, which I think is like 3 AM in the UK. So by the time this video goes up, I think it's going to be like 6 hours from now or something like that. We will potentially see a post on one or both of the official Dokkan Twitter accounts, which will hopefully tease at least something to do with part 3, because of course the big thing that we're all waiting to see, I mean you can see the title of the video, if we take a look in the part 3 information, the only thing that really came out in part 3 last year, we obviously get the last of the 50 special summon tickets, another co-op campaign, so just a few extra free rewards, and then we get new stages for the events. There was a revamped story event. Maybe we'll get that as well, but obviously we're going to get the new stages for the story events. We'll get the Extreme Z areas for the trunks, the 2 free-to-play trunks, the final stages of the red zone, and then of course the other big thing that was part 3 last year was the STR Cooler EZA. Now, when this guy dropped, this was like big hype, right? He was probably the best EZA TUR when he came out. Now obviously with the way content progressed after this, he did age relatively quickly, but at the time of release he was incredibly good, and arguably probably the most hype EZA from the entire celebration, I think, maybe. So definitely very exciting to see who is going to get announced in part 3, because the only other thing we got was like an explosive chain battle, and that's it, right? So Extreme Z area for the free-to-play units, the extra stages for the stuff that we've already got, and then the EZA is going to be kind of the big ticket thing. And hopefully they can match up to the hype of Cooler from last year. So when it comes down to thinking about who the LR or who the EZA is going to be, I honestly, taking a look at the Future Saga category, there's really not that many options that I think we could end up seeing, right? So we're going to go into the 2 very obvious ones and probably the most wanted ones, which is of course starting off with the Int transforming base form Goku Black. So this guy came out in November 2018 on JP, which means he's not far away from being 5 years old, and then came out in April 2019. Look at that, back in the dark days when Global was pretty much 6 months behind constantly. But even that is, you know, not far away from being 4 years, is like what, like 4.5 years? So this guy desperately needs an EZA. Now, we just got a new Time Traveler's leader in the new trunks, but having an extreme one is always good for making those different splits of the team. He obviously will get a full 170 lead, and then the extreme int types, I would imagine, will go up to at least 120 would be good. It may only be 100, but 120, or we've seen some of the sub-lead post-EZAs getting 130. That would be kind of cool. I know the sub-lead is not really as important, but Time Travelers being a full 170 will be good. He greatly raises defense and is an infinite stack. So obviously this isn't going to get any less than that. I don't see them going up to massively raises, but if he greatly raised attack and defense, that would obviously be a great start. And then the biggest problem this guy has and why he aged so quickly is you can see, looking at his passive, he doesn't have any start of turn defense. So him getting 50% extra defense every time he supers doesn't really make a huge amount of difference when he doesn't have a lot of defense to start with. So he needs a good amount of attack and defense at the start of turn, and then he gets a bit of extra attack every turn, which is nice just for a little bit of an attack buff. If they're going to add raising attack into his super attack effect anyway as well, it'd be kind of cool if that was just straight up attack and defense at the start of each turn, but I can't see them doing that whilst him also having the greatly stacking, right? And then he has a 5% crit chance with each attack received, up to 40. They could easily make this like 10 up to 50 or something, right, just to make it a little bit easier to get that maxed out. And then his transformation condition, now this is one of the things that could be the most interesting, because his transformation is not an active skill, which means it can change with an EZA. You look at like AGL Turles, STR Android 21, like if it's not an active skill, then it can change with an EZA, because it's essentially just part of their passive. So transforms when HP is 80% or above, starting from the 6th turn. Now, the HP restriction I don't think is that bad, because the Zamasu team does have a ton of healing. So it's the 6th turn thing that is the absolute nightmare. So it'd be very cool to see this be reduced. 5th turn would obviously be like the bare minimum. It'd be kind of crazy if they made it 4th turn. that would be very, very good, right? Because if he's on turn 1, you get 2 appearances as the base form, and then if he's on turn 2, he's just transforming straight away on the next appearance, which is very cool. Because, of course, once he transforms into the Rosé, he's still greatly stacking on his super, so it really doesn't matter if you transform, like, early. And then he's getting attack 150, 50% chance to crit, so you don't even keep the crit chance from the base form that you're building up, so it doesn't matter if he transforms earlier, and then he gives extreme class allies 3 key. So the best case scenario for the Zamasu team is this guy giving stats as well as the 3 key. That would obviously be very good, and then you give him start of turn defense as well, keep the crit chance, and then obviously both in base and in Rosé, if he has some kind of chance to additional built into his passive, that would obviously be very, very good, right, as an infinite stacker, because that means on the best RNG turns he can get 3 super attacks. Now, I wouldn't mind if it was restricted, like, if as long as the restriction wasn't too bad. Like, one of the things I mentioned on the earlier stream when we were talking about it is, imagine if it was like, gets a guaranteed additional super if there is a Realm of Gods ally in the rotation or something, right? Because you're pretty much always going to be running him with other Zamasu or Goku Black units, but then it means with his links like Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, Prepared for Battle, Fierce Battle, it means you could actually still run him with like Realm of Gods Saiyans, like Goku and Vegeta cards, and he would still be kind of good. Obviously the support would be wasted, but then he would still be pretty viable on those teams, right? So I wouldn't mind if it was restricted as long as the restriction isn't too bad, or you just give him the straight up, like, launches an additional attack that has a high chance to become a super, because then even if that attack doesn't become a super, by getting at least the normal attack guaranteed, that increases the chance that you proc the hidden potential and then get an additional super anyway. So this guy, I think people have a lot of high hopes for. He is, I think, it's him and like STR Jiren, I think, are like the 2 oldest Dokkan Fest exclusive TURs that don't have EZAs yet. So this guy, like, if he doesn't get an EZA in part 3, I'll be very surprised, right? Like, again, we'll look at the category list after I've talked about these couple of units, but I really don't see who else they could do if they don't do these couple of units that we're talking about here, because the next big one is obviously the actual LR in Rosé. Now, for the worldwide celebration last year, we did get an LR EZA, because we got, I think it was in part 1, we got Namek Goku and LR Full Power Frieza, whereas this year, so far, we've only gotten EZAs for TURs. So I definitely could see this Goku Black being the part 3 EZA. He is a future Saga leader, so I believe, it'll be 150? I don't think it was 160, right, for his leader skill when he gets, if he gets an EZA. He greatly raises defense on both of his super attacks. He's always been able to hit some pretty good numbers, so if they did put attack raising into the super attack effect as well, that would be pretty crazy. Even if it was only just in the 18 key, that would be kind of good. Obviously, additional is good for him because he's greatly raising defense on the 12 key. Buff up his start of turn attack and defense, because remember, LRs don't get any extra levels, because TURs go to 140, but LRs do not change, so their passive carries the full weight of their EZA, right? They don't get a benefit of getting extra stats. So attack and defense 66, obviously that needs to be way higher, at least 166, right? Then he gets an additional 6% each time key raises by 1 up to 120. So easily they can just buff this up as well. Key 2 with each final blow delivered up to +6. Now the final blow mechanic is pretty terrible, but obviously if this guy becomes an incredibly hard hitting unit, it might not be as bad. But especially with some of the newer difficult content, like you think about the new red zone stages, only one of them, which is the easiest one, has more than 2 phases. So if you were using this guy in the new Dismal Future red zones, like the ones that are actually difficult, it's only possible for him to get 1 finishing blow before the end of the fight anyway. So I think they need to add in, like, for the finishing blow effects, if they obviously they're not going to get rid of it. So characters that have these effects, they need to make it like way more worthwhile, like actually getting, but of course at the same time not make it so the unit needs it in order to be good. So you want to make this guy a hard hitter as much as possible, and then make it something like key +3 and attack and defense 50% or something with each finishing blow delivered. Because, as I said, in the current most difficult content, sometimes it's only possible to even get 1 finishing blow anyway, right? So it needs to be a buff that's actually worth getting, or it's just going to be a dead part of his passive. I mean, I could see them just making it like key +3 with each final blow delivered up to +9, and that's it. And then it just doesn't factor in, and his EZA could still be really good. And then recovers 6% HP at the end of the turn in which attack was received. They could easily buff that up to like 10, for example, and then yet another unit on the Zamasu team that has really good healing. So definitely could be very interesting. Now, he does have an active skill, which is his Rage mode. HP 66% or less starting from the 6th turn. This cannot change because it's an active skill, so very unfortunate. A lot of these events you're not going to see turn 6, or and again his team has so much healing, so even if you're getting to turn 6, are you going to be on 66% or less HP? I don't know. But once he transforms into the Rage mode, this obviously can be updated with an EZA. So just like all Rage modes, right, he just does destructive damage with both of his supers. He gets additional 1 key per key sphere obtained, so it makes it easier to get the 18 key, and his attacks are effective against all types. I guess they don't really need to change this. Maybe make it 2 key per key sphere, so he's like guaranteed getting the 18 keys. Maybe put like something like Orange Piccolo where he has a chance to additional as part of his passive, because I think with his Rage mode being basically so difficult to get, it should be incredibly powerful. Now, I know it's going to have the same feature as like a Giant Form and stuff, where if you use the Rage mode and the enemy supers you, you get that great effect where then the Rage mode ends. Because the turn counter is frozen, it means the enemy can't super. So tactically, very, very useful ability, but you want to make it worthwhile and actually do a bunch of damage, right? So 2 key per key sphere obtained, attacks effective against all types, and then like high chance to launch an additional super, I think would be very, very good for his Rage mode. But again, as I say, because it's an active skill, the condition to use it can't change, right? So these two are absolutely the two most wanted and most likely. This guy is, you know, over 3 years old at this point now as well. The only other option that people have been talking about, I kind of made a meme video about it, I did a re-showcase for them, is the AGL Future Gohan and Trunks. But these guys on Global, they're only like 1.5 years old. So it'd be very strange, I think, to see these guys get an EZA. I don't want to go into too much detail about what they could do with them, because I honestly don't see it happening. But I mean, Future Gohan was one of the Part 2 LRs, so it's not completely impossible. And they really wouldn't need that much to make them better. I feel like they need to change, like, either make it a specific type of orb so you can help set them up ahead of time, or make it 2 random types of orbs, because their orb changing can sometimes be a huge letdown, especially when you're getting the majority of their stats from actually picking up AGL orbs specifically. And then they're only getting an additional super if you get 8 orbs. So their orb changing definitely can be disappointing, so that would be something I would like to see changed. And then their active skill, so obviously the conditions won't change, but the condition is actually pretty good. And then they change into Future Gohan. I've always thought it was weird the way his thing works with his passive with the revival. I don't see the point of getting a unit that comes out and their whole purpose is just to immediately die and then revive and then be good. I've never really understood that, but one thing that could be very interesting is, and someone pointed this out I think on Twitter the other day, is because it's part of his passive and it's just a line that would be needed to add into the passive. One of the things that would be really, really good for this guy and any future revival unit really at all, when he gets an EZA, imagine if they ended the, they added into his passive the wording that Tech 23rd World Tournament Goku has. So he revives with 85% HP when the character is KO'd, but then on this last part, key +5, defense 58%, and reduced damage received by 58%. I mean, we'd probably put these numbers up as well, right? So like key +5, defense 158%, reduces damage received by 58% from the rest of the battle when this character or any other character uses a revival skill, right? Like 23rd World Tournament Goku. And then this guy could be really, really good, because the big problem with revivals is the more revival units we get in the game, the more the older revival units that don't have that 23rd World Tournament Goku wording start to become essentially useless to run, because if they're not the one reviving, they don't get their buffs. So that would be really interesting, but I really don't see it happening. But you know, it's not impossible. Never say never with Dokkan, right? Now, the other thing that we are waiting for, of course, that fits the theme of this celebration is these 2 future androids. Their sticker effects were added into the files on JP a little while ago. Now, whilst that confirms that they will get an EZA at some point, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be soon. It's weird that they would put it in the files so early, and obviously these guys fit the Future Saga theme, so I could definitely see these guys getting an EZA in Part 3, but could you imagine how disappointed everybody would be if it was like just these 2? with like a 30-stage EZA to EZA both these guys, and that was it. That was the Part 3 EZA after last year being STR Cooler. Like, even if these two were really, really good, I feel like everyone would be pretty mad if these were the two that were getting an EZA. So I don't know. I feel like if nothing else, we'll see these guys as like extra EZAs, because they both are pretty basic. 18 has the defense stacking for a couple of turns, 17 has attack stacking for a couple of turns. Obviously that's much worse, so it'd be better if they both just had both. They both change orbs, which can like help each other out with the typings. But I mean, these guys fairly blank slate in terms of like, they don't really have any super great abilities. So whilst they could do a good job, I wouldn't even really expect these guys to be that great. I mean, it could happen, but yeah, hopefully these guys aren't the two main EZAs. Because if we take a look at the Future Saga category, so I brought it up to have a quick look to bring up those pages to look at. But when we look through, like, who else is even here that could get an EZA? Like, every other LR is either like brand new or has an EZA already, or like this Trunks here is tied to Super Battle Road. So that's it, right? And then we get to the TURs. In terms of Future Saga, like AGL Goku Black is too new. All these units have like an EZA already. Like this Tech Trunks, AGL Trunks, the one from the Super Saiyan that transforms to Super Saiyan. I feel like he's too new, right? And even though he's on the category, he doesn't really fit the theme of the celebration. It just like, who else is there to be a big ticket? Because most of these guys on here are sub EZAs or like banner units and stuff, right? So obviously we have the free-to-play ones coming, but we mentioned those already. Just like, who else is there? So realistically, I would say, again, I you know, never say never about these guys, but it's got to be one or both of these, right? Now, I don't want to build people up for disappointment, because that's what happened with the Part 2 LR. Like, everybody was like, oh yeah, it has to be a Goku Black, and then it was Future Gohan, and loads of people were really disappointed. But like, realistically, like, who else can be the big ticket EZA of Part 3 unless it's one of these two? Unless it's them, which I think is very unlikely. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Who do you think is going to be the Part 3 EZA? Will we get one or more? And let me know what you would do to design the one that you think is going to get an EZA. What would you give them? Let me know down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.